Day one of the Derek Chauvin trial for the murder of George Floyd, opening statements recap. Because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So I just finished watching the opening statements in the Derek Chauvin trial for the murder of George Floyd, and I want to try to give real-time commentary in 2 and 3 minute bursts over the course of the day to tell you what I'm seeing as a former career prosecutor, including 22 years as a homicide prosecutor. And the reason I'm sitting in my living room dressed in a jacket and tie is because I'm also hopping on and off air for MSNBC and NBC News Now, where I'm a legal analyst. So let me try to just talk about some of what I saw in the opening statements. First of all, the prosecutor, Jerry Blackwell, I thought gave a terrific opening statement. It was understated, but it was powerful, it was emotional, it was linear, chronological, and I thought he did a terrific job. Some of the highlights: he talked about how, it was an honor for anybody to be a police officer, to be a public servant, to wear a badge, and to be entrusted to protect and serve the citizens of Minneapolis. He talked about the fact that you're supposed to police coming from a place of compassion and sanctity for human life. He talked about how Derek Chauvin betrayed his badge by using unreasonable, unnecessary, and excessive force. He talked about the fact that George Floyd was unarmed, posing no threat to anybody. He was cuffed, he was under control, and he was, in fact, defenseless. He talked about the tape that we all have heard is 8 minutes and 46 seconds long as actually being 9 minutes and 26 seconds long. During the course of that tape, George Floyd says 27 times, "I can't breathe." He also cries out for his mother. He says, "Tell my kids I love them." And he says, "They'll probably kill me here." He said something that I didn't know. We all knew that Derek Chauvin had a knee on George Floyd's neck. He also apparently from time to time had his other knee on George Floyd's back, further depriving George Floyd of taking enough oxygen into his body to oxygenate his blood to live, to survive. He used a phrase that I thought was really quite powerful. He said, no matter how George Floyd was struggling, was suffering, was dying, no matter how the bystanders were yelling and screaming, "You're killing him, get your knee off his neck, let him up, take his pulse, let him breathe," Derek Chauvin does not let up and he does not get up. He does not let up and he does not get up until George Floyd is dead. He talked about how there is a standard that once somebody's in your custody as a police officer, they're in your care, in your custody, in your care. He then related something that was especially powerful. He talked about the, quote, veritable bouquet of bystanders, which I thought was a wonderful turn of a phrase, in referring to all the people that gathered, that videotaped and that watched what was going on, watched those police officers end George Floyd's life. And then we saw and we heard the tape. And folks, as a former career homicide prosecutor, I had the misfortune of seeing lots of murders caught on video. I've never seen one as impactful as this, in part, not only the imagery that we see, which is painful to watch, but we hear real-time narration by the bystanders, that bouquet of bystanders, as the prosecutor called them. And they begged and pleaded with these officers, "Do not kill him. Get off his neck, check his pulse, let him breathe. Stop it, stop it, stop it. We've got your badge numbers. Please don't kill him." They're yelling, they're begging, they're pleading, they're imploring, and they're calling the police. The bystanders are calling the police on the police because they see a murder in progress. They see a crime in progress. And those police officers ignored it. And instead, They deprived George Floyd of enough oxygen, of enough oxygenated blood flow to live, to survive. They killed him. He didn't die. George Floyd didn't die from an overdose. He didn't die from underlying health conditions. He died because they basically asphyxiated him. They prevented him from taking in enough air, enough oxygen to oxygenate his blood, to keep it flowing to his heart, his brain, to keep him alive. They killed him. Nothing else killed him. Think about this, folks. If he hadn't been stopped by the police that day, would he have died of a heart disease? Would he have died of a drug overdose? No, they killed him. And there were 5 armed officers there responding to an incident where somebody passed a fake $20 bill. 5 armed police officers. Boy, then the defense had their turn in opening statements. And the defense attorney started out talking about reasonable doubt and how the jurors have to apply reason and common sense to the evidence in the case. Okay, reason tells me this was excessive force, and common sense tells me this was a murder. That's what my reason and common sense applied to what I know of the case. We don't know all the evidence yet, but we know a good bit of it. He, of course, attacked George Floyd for being a drug user, for passing a $20 bill. I don't fault him for that. That's part of the standard defense playbook. Go after the victim, demonize the victim, try to alienate the jurors against the victim, and then maybe they will excuse the conduct of the police officers. He said something that I thought was a really sour note. He said the officers killed George Floyd. He didn't say it this way, but he said they felt threatened by the crowd. That bouquet of bystanders. Those people who were begging and pleading and yelling and shouting, "Do not kill that man. Let him breathe. Check his pulse. Let him up. Put him in the car." They felt threatened by the bystanders who were trying to stop a murder in progress. They felt threatened by the bystanders who were calling the police on the police, reporting that the police are murdering a citizen. They felt threatened. So I guess they responded to the threat that they felt by killing George Floyd. I found that to be a poor defense argument and a sour note. Offensive, I would say. Those are some of the highlights/lowlights of what I saw in today's opening statements, and now I'm going to go back to the coverage and continue to try to put these videos out in what is as close to real time as I can, commenting on what I'm seeing. So I hope you'll stay tuned, or you'll tune in for the next chapter. Thanks, folks.